Kane is in the building.
Yeah. Already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on. Alright, already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on.
Have you ever had the feeling that you was being had? Don't that shit that make you mad? They treat you like a slave, put chains all on your soul and put whips up on your back. They be lying through their teeth, hope you slip up off your path. I don't switch up, I just laugh, put my kicks up on their desk, unaffected by...
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of State of the Jungle with Malik Wright, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host. As always, we've got Daniel, we've got Lolo, we've got Evan, we got Marissa. Almost messed up her name, running the back office, and we've got a jam-packed show. Lots of stuff to get into, lots of stuff to discuss, but before we do, make sure you guys do us a huge favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the First Star Logistics studio. Guys, the NFL Combine is behind us. What a week it was. A lot of stuff. You hear whispers. You hear people talking about this. You want to hear people talking about this. Let's actually go back to that. Let's start on the NFL Combine recap, Marissa. I first want to caution everybody real quick. When you're at the NFL Combine, it really is one big networking event when you're not talking to players. You hear so much bullshit. And let me just say this. You hear so much bullshit. Because that's what it is. You get people asking questions. You get people saying things. You get people giving their opinions on things. That does not mean everything you hear in Indy is going to happen. A lot of the trades, a lot of the free agency deals that you see break open like a minute after the free agency legal tampering period, that all starts in Indy. All that stuff starts in Indy. But I want to caution you. When you read articles of people saying this and that about Cincinnati, the Bengals are not like any other franchise or any other organization. The Bengals are not going there and just saying, hey, such and such, we're going to do this by free agency. We're going to do this when the new league year opens up. So I will, without tarnishing anybody's report, I thought it was reported in such a way where it wasn't facts. It was more so just loose things that were spoken. I wouldn't look at it as gospel. That is what I will say. It is very, and take this from somebody who I'm young still, I'm 28 years old, but it took me so long to build up my contacts that I have inside of Paycor Stadium. It took me so long to break into this business. I can promise you nobody is just in that building is just walking up to random people saying, hey, this is what's happening. That's what's happening. They're one of the more tight-lipped organizations. It's very difficult to find things out of the Cincinnati Bengals organization. And a lot of teams, to be honest, the Patriots are quite like that and other teams as well. So I would just caution you when you hear things, take it with a grain of salt because it really is that difficult. That being said, the fact of the matter is there were a lot of interesting things that did come out of Indy. I think one of the more fascinating things that I did hear non-Bengals related was the hype on JJ McCarthy. That was interesting to me. That was extremely interesting to me. I thought the discourse around Brock Bowers and his weight, that was a real thing at Indy. A lot of people came away from watching Brock Bowers at the podium not liking the guy, believe it or not. Some people said they didn't know if he loved football. They said they didn't know. And I didn't take that away from when I watched Brock Bowers. I saw a guy that wasn't in love with the media process. He seems like a humble guy that just wants to shut up and play football. I think one of the worst things that happened to Brock Bowers was him taking a picture next to his idol, Rob Gronkowski, because everybody has then started to pinpoint Rob Gronkowski and say, hey, these two don't even look like they play the same position. I thought Brock Bowers was extremely honest at the podium when I asked him the dying question. Okay, everybody's talking about you as some can't miss prospect. Tell me what you need to fix in your game. Tell me an issue, right? Because things we can point to, Brock Bowers didn't see a lot of man-to-man coverage at Georgia because the tight end position, let's face it, at Georgia is an afterthought. To me, I think a lot of Georgia's tight ends look like monsters. Why? Because you look at even the kid that the Steelers drafted last year, Darnell Washington. Everyone was clamoring, believing that, hey, you know what, he's going to be an absolute beast in the National Football League because it's an afterthought in that Georgia offense. So what is Brock Bowers going to become? I don't know if there's, and I love talking with Trevor, I love talking with my guy Dame. I don't know if there's anything such thing as a can't miss prospect, but I really don't think that there's a can't miss prospect at the tight end position. Daniel, I have a lot more that I want to say about the NFL Combine, things that we heard in tea leaves. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the thing, that a lot of people should definitely take away is, once again, like the networking part, and the sense that, like, a lot of this stuff is going to be media driven, whether you see, like Byron Murphy, you look at the discourse between the defensive tackles, Byron Murphy and Jerzon Noon. Talked to a lot of people that said, film is absurd. But the talk of the town coming out of the Combine is Byron Murphy, because he's making the headlines, because of how he's testing. And that's where you see, a lot of times, talking to some people, go with your analysis of what happens in December with January, because a lot of times you'll see what happens is the analysis in January is the same that happens right after the draft. Whether it was, with the quarterbacks, you can look at the same exact thing. It was clear. Caleb Williams is 1, Drake May 2, Jaden Daniels 3. Then Senior Bowl comes around. Then Combine comes around. And now people are saying maybe it's Jaden Daniels is above Drake May. And come draft time, you're most likely going to see Drake May go over Jaden Daniels. So that was one of my takeaways. And, just looking at, the Bengals aspect of things, there's a lot of good talent on the board for the Bengals. And my takeaway, looking at the offensive line, right? There's a lot of talent at the offensive line. Amarius Mims, J.C. Latham, Fuaga, all these guys, athletic freaks. But you guys also have to understand, for me, my issue with that is, like, Fuaga is a great run defender, but passing game, he's still got a lot to work with. Some people are saying he could be a better guard. And even looking at Marius Mims, the dude played 800 snaps, only started 7 games this year. There's a lot of give and take with these guys, but the talk of the town coming in the Combine is it's how these guys test, and that's it. And for me, how I look at, these guys and their testing numbers, I don't take too much into account with it. So
I think, about the Combine and everything, I think Daniel kind of alluded to it a little bit at the beginning, but at the end of the day, the Combine needs to be just a part of the process. You can't overvalue it. You can't undervalue it. It's just a part of the process. It's a step in the scouting period. Like, everything about it is just another step. Don't make it the gospel. Don't overreact to things. Don't, one way or the other, whether it's good or bad. These players,
so much of that.
And that happens year in and year out. And it's fun. And it's hard not to. It's hard not to see somebody break the 40 record and freak out. It's hard not to see these running backs lift a bunch of weight with their short arms and not overreact. It's crazy not to overreact when you see offensive linemen moving the way they do, these massive human beings. But again, the Combine is just more information about a player. It's not going to be the gospel. It's not going to be the all in all. Use it as more information and to help build your opinions on players, but don't overvalue it either.
I think that's a good point, Logan, because, like, it's really a tool, much like anything, right? Like, much like any stat, right? Like, age-based production, whether you're looking at any type of production profile, analytics, stuff like that, it's all just pieces, right? None of this is the one single answer. And the Combine's the same way, where it's a way to confirm your priors, right? They say double count things, right? Like, when fast guy runs fast, don't be like, wow, he ran fast. All right, we're going to move him up again, twice. Right? So, like, that's more of a way to confirm your priors, but then also say, hey, oh man, Chop Robinson had short arms. Oh crap. Okay. Does that come into play? Let me go back and watch the film and see, does that play in the run game? Does that matter when other guys get in their hands in his chest? Does he have a counter to that? That's a way that you can use it to be like, okay, confirm what I thought. Oh, Dallas Turner looks huge on tape. Okay. Yeah. He's got a freaking crazy wingspan. Okay. Yeah. We see that. Like, that makes sense. So it's really, like you said, just a way to kind of confirm what's going on and then know whether you need to revisit the tape or look at some aspect of a player a little bit more.
So I have a philosophy that I follow, right? And it goes back to what I said before. It starts in Indy. That can be said both in a good way, in a bad way. It does start in Indy, because in Indy, a lot of GMs, a lot of scouts lose their job because they overthink picks. Let's be honest. Here's my take. if you weren't sold or you didn't love a prospect going into the combine, a week of watching them lift weights, a week of watching them run an absurd 40 time out of a track stance, because you're not doing that in the National Football League. No team is saying, hey, get in your track stance and run a 40-yard dash deep down the field.
Right.
Why did a week at the combine all of a sudden move offensive tackle 7 all the way to offensive tackle 3 on your board? Yeah. To me, what's up, Jess? Jess is in the comment section. Appreciate you, Jess. We haven't seen you in a while, but I'll say this. I'm not sold on Amarius Mims. And no amount of RAS score and his grade, it says, is going to make me change that. I think that there's something to be said about the guy not being available for his team, regardless of what that is or whatever that looks like. He might go on to have a fine career. Where the Bengals are at, especially for a lot of those people out there that say the Bengals can't draft offensive linemen or the Bengals can't do that. Are you really willing for the Bengals to take a bet on a guy who has question marks? Let's just call it what it is.
They all have question marks.
Everybody has question marks, but his are a little bit more alarming.
But that makes you look a little more closely at him, right?
I don't think that they're in a situation, Ev, right, in which I could say, yeah, I'd be comfortable with the Bengals drafting Mims just because he tested like an
with the
absolute
plan for him to start year one. Yeah,
right. I don't get behind that. To me, if the Bengals are drafting a guy at 18 on the offensive tackle position, I want the most sure thing that you can find. There's no such thing as a sure thing. Let's be clear about that.
Right.
But that's what we want.
That's what you want. You want the closest thing to a sure thing. And to me, Mims doesn't do that for me.
I feel like, though, this is an important part of the conversation, though, like with Tyler Eifert, right? Let's use him as an example. Like, people probably label him injury prone, right? Like, had a fair share of injuries of varying degrees to various parts of your body, right? But was that elbow injury? Was that because he's injury prone, or was that because any human who lands that way on your elbow is going to break your elbow? Tyler Eifert.
Yeah.
When he had that elbow injury. Like when you have a 300-pound guy roll into your knee and then you tear something, is that because you're injury prone, or is that just like, it didn't matter if you're Frank Gore, who, again, if we try and predict injuries, sometimes he was the one of most injured running backs in college, right? Came out, played longer than every other running back in his draft class, rarely ever missed a snap. Like, it's hard to predict this stuff sometimes, but you're completely right that raises that flag of availability, right? So at the combine, you get to do the medicals. You get to see up close, is there anything structurally? Is there any reason for this? Is there a lack of cartilage in this guy's knee that, like for not Darnell, right? Washington. Degenerative knee thing. Now this first round tight end goes to the third round, right? That's a lot of what the combine is. But I think it's important also to ask, like we did with anybody else, that these Mims injuries, right? Like, yes, he had 2 ankle issues. One of them, I'll give that to you. When you injure your ankle for the next year or so, you are highly likely to re-injure that same ankle.
Exactly
but also, again, like I find it hard for me to knock him because a guy rolled into his ankle and he got hurt, right?
100%.
I have problems holding that against him, but like, you're right. The lack of playtime is a concern. Like, it's definitely a box you have to check.
Just add on to, I don't think it's a concerning part of the injury prone, but it's hey, he's stepping in day one and he had 7, starts this past year. And before this, it was, he was just bouncing around, not, full-time starter.
But when he does play, does it look sloppy or unrefined
I think he looked good. And that's where like, he definitely looked good. The one guy, like we talked about this at the combine, I'm not a fan of Fuaga for the Bengals. And I've had this, talk with other people because, like for other teams, it could be good, for a run heavy style, but just looking at his mentality too, like we talked with him and, that was the lead for every one of his conversations. What do you love about playing offensive line? Run, run, run. I'm a dominator. I love the run game. And he didn't really talk about the pass game a lot. And for me, at pick number 18, looking at it, I want somebody who's going to protect my franchise quarterback. And for him, that would have to be extremely developed. Versus a guy like JC Latham at least brought up, hey, it's the mental side of the game for me. So for me, I'm personally out on Fuaga because when you're sitting at 18, you're going to have your pick of a Fuaga, a Newton. You're going to have so much talent on the board at 18. And for me personally, like, I don't know if I'm on
That's
board
a good point, though, because the Bengals are one of the pass heaviest teams in the NFL. So, like, that totally tracks. Like, he can be a great player and an excellent fit somewhere else. But, like, for a team that's throwing the ball 65% of the time,
fits matter.
Right. It does.
And I was just saying another little thing about Amarius Mims too. Like, he's good when he plays. Obviously, he's very young. He had an injury. It's not like he's constantly hurt. He's young. He played one real season and then got hurt a little bit. But another interesting part about this, and just talking about everything about him, from his practice time to just his availability, the amount of times he's had to play. He also said this week that he spends 40% of his practice time at left tackle. So now you have a guy who's already has limited reps in the game at right tackle, and he's also practicing almost half of his time in practice at a completely other position too. Now, that might not matter. Some organizations might love that. Some organizations might hate that.
Right.
But again, it's just another piece of information that you get from the combine that you make your opinion on.
Funny thing enough, guys, I was sitting here, we were talking, we were in the First Row Logistics studio the other day, just chilling. It was early in the morning. I was talking with Dave Lapham, and we were talking about Mims. And he said to me, yeah, the injury is a thing, right? Obviously, but you could have an Anthony Munoz situation on your hands, where Anthony Munoz blew both of his ACLs in college and came to the NFL and was an absolute Iron Man, right? He just played everything. Now that could happen.
Yeah.
Now, they were playing less games back then, but that could happen,
they
right?
They were practicing a lot more too, though.
Yeah, that's true. That could happen. So that all being said, I'm out. I'm good. I'm out.
No, that's
I'm
fair.
out. But let's continue to talk about the Brock Bowers situation, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who are enamored with Brock Bowers. And I don't know, for me, I don't love the size. Let's start there. I don't
Small
love
hands.
I don't love the 6'3". I don't love that. I think that when we're speaking about Brock Bowers and you're asking yourself, is he some can't miss prospect? I know a lot of people love the after the catch ability, right? And breaking all these tackles. But the question I ask myself is he doing that in the NFL?
Yep.
One of his best traits is his run after the catch ability, right? Being able to break these tackles.
Yep.
And is he doing the National Football League? See, when you do a deep dive on Brock Bowers' tape, when you do a deep dive on Brock Bowers' stats, the whole 9 yards, what teams was he doing that against too? Because I can tell you there were a lot of teams where he wasn't doing that. And Ronald Best, there's no Bama homers going on here. I'm being as objective as possible. I'm telling it like it is, man.
Here's the thing, right?
You may dislike that because you're calling me a Bama homer, but I'm the same guy that's not a fan of JC Latham. So
right,
you could take that with however which way you want, but continue.
You and I were both saying that, but no, it's the fact that when the already small tight ends, right? Sam Laporta's, Dalton Kincaid's, Trey McBride's, the guys who've come out the recent years, obviously the big Travis Kelce's and the George Kittles, these guys are 6'5", 250, right? And they can still move well. But then you got Brock Bowers, who, let's be honest, he weighed in at 243. He's probably closer to like 238 when he plays, right? Like a lot of that's probably water weight and bulking up for the combine, which is
the reason
why
he didn't run and
test.
stuff. Yep.
Right, which is like a lot of the reason why the combine is becoming not less valuable in the sense of like just in the testing, because people aren't doing 3 cones. Yeah. People are just there for medicals, and then they're going to test at their pro day where they're more comfortable. They can play in the events more fair, all that stuff. Because the combine schedule is just terrible. It's terrible. But that's beside the point. But the point is that Brock Bowers is smaller than the small tight ends. Like, he measured him with 9 3/4 hands. Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride all had like 10 1/4. So you're already dealing with this guy who's on the small end of small. And what do we talk about, Malik, last year a lot with guys like Emmanuel Forbes? If you're going to be the smallest of the small, you have to test like an elite athlete. That's the only way you excel and manage to work in those positions. And like you said, it's a great question to look at him and say, when the athleticism gets better, when the technique of tackling is better, is he still as effective, or can he be as effective? Because this is not South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and I'm not trying to, again, slam all these programs, but like they didn't necessarily have the best defenses this year. Right. And that Kentucky had in the last couple of years, they had some spots, but it's just Georgia was a very, very, very good program.
Yeah, I just don't want to confuse, like, we're in alignment. Yeah. I don't want to confuse having a need for just like, hey, let's just draft the guy because he's there and we have a need. When I can assure you there is going to be a premium player at a position that you need. The Bengals have been searching to get that Geno Atkins replacement since he left. Yep. You're probably going to have a Jerzon Newton staring at you in the face at 18. And I'm sorry, I'm drafting. And let me look at the camera and say this to be very, very clear so my words don't get misconstrued. I'm drafting a Jerzon Newton over Brock Bowers, over JC. I am. I'm sorry, I am. Because I think he fills a need. I think he's a guy that you can build long-term. He's a young player, and he's disruptive. Exactly what you're looking for on the defensive line. That's there. To me, I don't know why Jared Verse is slipping down.
A little older.
Boards and all that kind of stuff like that. But if
everyone else,
if that guy's staring there, I'm taking a hard look. If I'm Duke, if I'm the rest of those guys, I'm saying, hold on. In the world, only way do Tobin can speak. I'm thinking to myself, are we making a move there? Are we doing that? Because that's a potential premium edge rusher that we could probably steal and get here in this spot. To me, I think that all chips are on the table. But one thing you don't do this draft class is you don't settle just because you say, oh, we have a need at a position. The reason why the Bengals have had a revolving door at tight end outside of Irv Smith is because they've been able to get production out of that spot, right? I'd much rather them go the route. And by the way, we're going to talk about CJ Uzomah. We're going to talk about Hayden Hurst. We're going to talk about all those. I'd much rather pick up a guy in free agency and draft an absolute dog. That's what I'd rather do. I wouldn't just draft a tight end just to draft them. Listen, Brock Bowers might go on to have a fantastic career. Georgia didn't use him necessarily as the most refined tight end. They used him and gave him handoffs and end arounds and stuff like that. To me, this is one of the deepest offensive line classes they talk about, right? So you are going to have, as Danny likes to say, your pick of the litter. You're going to have your opportunity to draft one of those guys at some point. Don't reach on a guy because, Brock Bowers smash. He breaks tackles. To me, there's got to be more to it than that. And this is the part of the process that I love. People may not like it, and I understand people overreact during the combine and the numbers. They fall in love with, top 30 visits and all that kind of stuff like that. Jerzon Newton's an absolute dog. You hear me? He's an absolute dog that would change the face of a defensive line. And what do we always say? The Bengals need more juice. I guarantee you, Sam Hubbard looks completely different. He looks completely different if we have a true interior force. He looked different when they had Okunjobi. He looked different when we had BJ Hill and DJ Reed. He looked different. So while we're all clamoring and saying, draft the tight end, draft Brock Bowers, well, guess what? The holes that are facing your team, because the offense ain't it. The offense is, we know what that's about. We know they need to get consistent with the run game. We know they need to get consistent, getting the ball to their playmakers, stuff like that. But the tight end ain't making or breaking this offense. It's a nice chess piece to have, but it ain't making or breaking this offense. It's not. To me, you need interior passers because guess what? When you're facing that Mahomes or that Josh Allen in the playoffs, you're going to need to be able to get pressure on them. That's all I'm saying. Jared Verse is staring at me. I'm taking him. Jerzon Newton staring at me. I'm taking him. I'm sorry. If those guys are on the board and Brock Bowers still on the board, Brock Bowers, you'll be there at pick 19 too because I ain't drafting you.
This reminds me a lot of Kalijah Kancey when we're talking about Jerzon Newton, because remember, right before the combine and even maybe a little bit the week after, it was Kalijah Kancey might not make it outside the top 10. And then he ended up falling down to 19th, I think is where he was taken. And it's I see the same thing with Jerzon Newton right now, where it's especially this class, right? Because you mentioned it and Daniel's talked about it, where the offensive line class is so dense. I think Dane Brugler had 8 offensive tackles in the first round. Yeah. We know the wide receiver class. People are over the moon about the wide receiver class. We'll see how we all feel about that with the mid-tier guys, but a lot of people are really high on guys like Roma Dunze and Malik Neighbors. And so and now Brian Thomas and all that is going to push these good defensive players down. And like you said, you're going to end up getting a very good defensive player in the trenches. And where are the Bengals weak right now? In the trenches. I know tackle for sure, but if you get 5 tackles off the board before they pick and you're sitting there looking at Jerzon Newton and Jared Verse, dude, send the pick in on D-line and get the hell out of there.
Bro,
that's going to be it.
Do you see what the Eagles have?
Yeah.
Do you see what the Eagles have? I want you to be able to rush the passer. I want Mahomes and those guys to be running for their lives on the football field. That's what I want. I don't care about, we're drafting a tight end. You got freaking Jamar Chase, your franchise tag, T. Higgins, right? You still have weapons on the offense. It's not like your weapons void, right?
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, and Dan, I'm gonna get you. I know you're ready. To me, we've been clamoring and waiting for this force on the interior of the defensive line. Well, you're gonna have your pick staring at you. I pray Byron Murphy is there. I pray, but let's not get crazy. Let's not get crazy and get don't let people gas you up and get you so excited. Let's keep it to football. Let's keep the basis to the basis, man. The fact of the matter is, Noah Fant The reason why I talk so much about him, and we're going to talk more about him, is because that guy is a guy that's had shit quarterback play his entire career. And I see people saying, though, there's channels out there that are saying we're out on Noah Fant. Why? And you're clamoring for Hayden Hurst back in Cincinnati? You're clamoring for CJ Uzomah, who just shredded his entire leg, no disrespect, back in Cincinnati? What are we talking about? Yeah, the answer is let's go get a retread tight end who are coming off of injuries, who are on the wrong side of 30. Let's do that. Come on. Like, to me, you should want to continue to upgrade. Why do I say the Bengals need to go after Noah Fant? He's 26 years old. Doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on him. Has played behind shit quarterbacks. Played behind Will Dissly and Colby Parkinson. Why, for the life of me? I don't know. Maybe Pete Carroll doesn't know how to, what he has in an offensive weapon, but that is a guy that's an absolute dog. That's just my thoughts. Somebody said, nah, I'll pass on both. I'd rather have Hudson. Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
He's 29,
That's
28.
crazy.
Is that what he is now?
He's
Like,
30, I think.
Come on.
But that's the thing is like, right? Like Drew Sample, Tanner Hudson going to be back, but like that's not doing anything for you. You still end up with the same problems of we have a receiving tight end and we have a blocking tight end, and we don't have the guy who can do both and who can help kind of not telegraph things, not telegraph what we're doing, which is valuable by itself. But I also think that a lot of people are making valid points of like, you need to help the secondary. Well, adding that pass rush, adding the D line, adding this trench help, like that's going to help with the pass rush and with the secondary, because you're going to ask the secondary to cover for less time because you're getting more pressure. You're getting them out of structure. You're pushing them out of the pocket. Like that's all things that help the secondary to where they can play aggressive. Let your fast guys play fast.
So I want to touch on two things real quick. We're gonna continue this talk. So there are two questions I want to get to really, really quick. Somebody said the pick at 18 is going to be cornerback 8. Listen, I know people have been clamoring for cornerback. I believe in my heart it won't be cornerback because of what I believe the Bengals are going to do. I think the Bengals are going to have, I think they're comfortable with DJ Turner and Cam Taylor-Britt at corner. And I think the slot cornerback, I think you're going to see Mike Hilton's still there, but I also think you're going to see Dax Hill and that more of that role of covering tight ends and down in the slot. I think that the area of focus for them is going to be addressing the free safety position to help with the communication aspect. And for some reason, this is just like the tight end class last year. We're seeing so many free safeties get released, and they're going to be right then and there. So I don't believe the pick at 18 will be cornerback. Want to touch a little bit. Somebody said Brock Bowers a no-show at the combine. Why? Still recovering from injury? No. So here's the thing with Brock Bowers. There are people really, thinking about Brock Bowers playing weight. That was the chatter all week, right? Brock Bowers looks so
so many prospects didn't test.
But I don't think he was ready to perform with that.
Because you're not going to test as well as you do at that weight.
So you want to show teams that, hey, I'm a bigger guy than you think, and impress them in interview, and he looks so big in stature, but he wasn't ready to. That was a complete, guys
like Jaden Daniels or like slender wide
Right.
receivers, guys who are like, oh, they need to hit the 185 threshold or the 180. Like they drink a shit ton of water the day before and the day of, and before they go do weigh-ins, they slug another gallon, and then they sit there and
100%.
Each of those is like 3 pounds.
And I want to touch on I keep bringing it up every single week because I feel like I'm the person that started this Mulgeta discourse, because I let people know, obviously, Jesse Bates' agent Mulgeta, and who I had a conversation with last year about the whole Jesse Bates deal and all that kind of stuff. But I want to touch on this a little bit. Dave Mulgeta isn't just some guy you just can't negotiate with, guys. I promise you. If Dave Mulgeta was Joe Burrow's agent, the deal with Joe Burrow would have got done. Here's the issue. Again, I'm going to address, I feel like I address it every single week. You can't overvalue players who are not putting up impressive numbers on tape to warrant the contracts you are asking for. There's no way Noah Fant is going to get a record-breaking deal from the tight end position, because guess what? The numbers don't speak to that. So he's not going to ask for that. For athletes first, Dave Mulgeta, they pride themselves on taking on the best athletes. Had Dave Mulgeta, Noah Fant had better quarterback play, which is what he kind of talked about too in the past. He said, hey, I thought that we were on to something special in Seattle. And for some reason, obviously the playing time went down, whatever the case may be. I don't think it's just a thing. You can't negotiate with Dave Mulgeta. You can't negotiate with athletes first. I think it's understanding that the players that he represents, he is going to try to get the most out of them. Now Noah Fant doesn't really have a lot to work with. The only thing that he might have to work with that could get him an extra $1 million or $2 million is the fact that he is that first round pedigree. But outside of that, the numbers haven't been there because of the quarterback play. So again, don't think so much about, his agent's Dave Mogetta. Can't happen. That's not that. It's not that. It's just, it has to make sense. They view Jesse Bates, right? They view Jesse Bates as, somebody said, Bengals media does act so scared of. I agree. Jesse Bates was playing like one of the best safeties in the league. So as an agent, if you have a client that is playing like one of the best safeties in the league, it's like, I don't know, let's say Daniel's a gamer, right, of Madden, and he had a really dominant year of Madden.
Yeah.
Right.
Hypothetically, right?
Hypothetically. He's not good at Madden, actually.
That's so cap.
But and I'm his quote unquote manager. And all these different streaming services are going to want to offer him a contract to come, stream on their platform, whatever the case may be. Well, guess what? If Daniel had a monster year as a gamer, I can then approach those and say, hey, remember, he had that one great year. So the potential's there. This is the reason why he didn't do good this year. Yeah. No, this is the reason why he didn't do good this year. But if you never show that, right? If you never show that, as a manager, as an agent, you have nothing to stand on. Yep. Noah Fant has shown glimpses of that with terrible quarterback play. He has. But I still don't think him showing that in his first year or two, would be enough, even though Seattle did pick up his fifth-year option last year. I don't think that would be enough to warrant a record-breaking contract, because we saw Gesicki perform time and time again in Miami. And we saw what he signed for. $4.5 million, right? So we know at the end of the day, it comes down to, do you have the numbers to back up what you're asking? And if the answers are no, if the answer is no, sorry. Imagine saying a 26-year-old tight end who's had Drew Lock, Geno Smith, and Teddy Bridgewater as his quarterback is washed. That is what I saw on social media this week. I said, Bengals fans don't know what a good tight end is.
That's crazy.
We don't know what a good tight end is. You think Noah Fant is washed? Have you seen the quarterback play? Do me a favor, not highlights. Go on NFL.com, purchase yourself the what do you call it? The Game Pass, and you go watch film. You tell me how many times Noah Fant is running, streaking wide open, and then get back to me before you call him washed.
Watch the Bengals game.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
For me, when I look at this, it's almost like it makes too much sense. And that's kind of for me why, like, I agree with you. Noah Fant should be the guy, but like,
washed?
no, he's not washed. He's
I
not.
can't believe that discourse.
Yeah.
Noah Fant is washed. That's what I saw this week. Noah Fant is washed. How?
I didn't know people. If people are calling him washed, that's completely. They obviously don't know what he's talking about. Yeah. I think for me, the part that scares me, it makes too much sense, and it's like that's the guy. Like, respectfully, Schultz just got $12 million. Okay, go pay Fant $8 million. Like,
he had to perform for a year and show it.
And he did perform, right? Yeah. And they were willing to overpay because it was for a guy like CJ Stroud. Hey, that's what helped him out. For me, I don't care like what it takes, like $8 million, $6 million. Like, that's the part. I'm concerned because like it makes too much sense. So if I'm the Bengals, 1000%. Real quick, William Herman, our guy, he keeps asking this question. Why not do Bauer?
Benny Jones, I love you, man. Don't leave me, man. I'm so sorry. I know I'm annoying with the Noah Fant thing, but God damn it, I'm sorry. Don't leave, man. I'm sorry, but I will keep up this Noah Fant crusade until he's a goddamn Bengal. I'm sorry, because people think that freaking Hayden Hurst and CJ Uzomah and all these people saying Gerald, come on, man. What are we talking about here? Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I just want to answer this question from William. He said, why not do Bowers and Christian Wilkins, instead of Noah Fant and Newton? The reason why is you also have to look at it. The Bengals are not going to go into free agency with the expectation that Brock Bowers will be on the board. And you have to look at it from that lens, right? Their eyes and their focus is solely on free agency. They're not going to go into the draft saying, well, Mims is going to be there, so we don't have to go get an offense tackle. Or, Jerzon Newton's going to be there, so we don't have to get a Christian Wilkins. So you can go sign Christian Wilkins, and you can still draft Jerzon Newton. So
who signed Christian
I feel like the
Bengals.
Where? To what?
I hope so.
Madden?
I hope so.
Daniel's Madden career.
I think the other part of that coin, too, is Christian Wilkins and Brock Bowers would cost $25 million versus Noah Fant and Jerzon Newton would be like, let's put in the rookie contract, like 10, right? anywhere between 8 and 10, depending on what Fant signs for. So like that's the other part. And I think that's important because as much as I want the Bengals to go sign a Christian Wilkins or anybody wants them to go sign a Chris Jones or any just insert big free agent name here, right? I think we need to remind ourselves that though the Bengals have been active in free agency and though they've gotten some good players in free agency, when they signed DJ Reader, it was for like 12 or 13 million a year. When they signed Trey Hendrickson, it was 15 million a year, like APY. And these aren't the exact numbers they're going to get. Obviously, there's guaranteed money in cash, but that's important to consider when you say, what are the big names that they've paid out? 15, 12, 13 million. That's not getting you in the Christian Wilkins conversation. That's not getting you in the Chris Jones conversation. That's not getting you in the T. Higgins conversation, if you want to go that far. Like, so I definitely think that they might try and hit some of those like B tier free agents, the guys who are going to cost 80, 70% of what the top market value would be. But when was the last time we saw them pay like a top of market contract that wasn't quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Because even Orlando Brown wasn't that, right? Like he took a pay cut to play left tackle for them. So I think that's something that myself included, as I look at free agents that I want the Bengals to sign or that we talk about in these weeks, I'm going to need to consider that in my own right of, hey, they're not going to overspend. If they feel like they can knock it out of the park like they did with a lot of these guys, like the Von Bells, like the Ted Karrases, like the Alex Kappas, then yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You a Bowers guy, Daniel?
Brock Bowers. So what I saw with him real quick, I think he's good, but with him, it's almost like you have to look at the valuation. Like I go back to the running back position, for example. Everyone talks about their long speed. Everyone talks about how a running back can run so fast and, look at their breakaway speed. That's not what matters in the National Football League. Like most of the runs, like less than 5% of all runs are 20 plus yards. So a 40-yard dash respectfully does not mean anything.
You know the most underrated running back trait, in my opinion? Contact balance.
1,000%.
Alvin Kamara, excellent contact balance, low center of gravity, being able to survive that contact, because how many guys do we know like are talented running backs, but go down on first contact?
Completely. And that's like when you look at the running back position, switching over to the tight end position, Brock Bowers, most of his stuff, he's doing a lot of cool stuff, right? You have to look at him from the lens. You're drafting him to just be a weapon.
I like that.
Is that what you want at pick number 18 for a guy who's not like a dominant, jump ball receiver, a guy who's not a dominant guy? Like he can break tackles, yes, but a lot of his stuff came from scripted plays, rollouts. He's going to be a good, asset. But when you actually look at it this year, what would he put up? 600 yards, 700 yards? Is that what I'm drafting at pick number 18? I don't think he's this can't miss tight end prospect. So yeah.
I like what you said about the 42. Sorry.
No, you're good.
One of our guys was asking about it in the comments a little bit ago and was asking what value do you guys put in the 40? And I think it's kind of gotten to the point where it's the fun event, right? It's exciting. It's fun to have that straight line speed, but out of all the players on the field, who's running in a straight line for 40 yards, it's pretty much just corners who end up flipping their hips and running that, or it's wide receivers on go routes. And that's just not where 95% of the NFL players or plays fall, right? So 10-yard split is something that's much better to use than 40, especially for offensive linemen and stuff like that, trying to determine explosion. Vertical, like that's just immediate off the snap explosion. We can talk more about this kind of stuff in our kind of war room episodes and stuff like that. As we look at the draft.
And the what room?
The war room episodes, maybe they're coming up. They're
coming soon.
And I'm surprised you guys are all a little anti-Bowers, man.
Not anti-Bowers, because I think you framed it well, because you're not getting your traditional.
That's why I like him, though. That's why I like it.
And that's the thing is I
love Brock.
For a team that spreads things out so much, right? That is kind of is that not a great piece to have as a team that might need more coming from the interior, the slot, the underneath routes, the middle of the field with Tyler Boyd? Is that not a way that you could supplement that as you kind of shift?
Absolutely.
That's not to say that, Brock Bowers can't put on a little more weight or a couple more pounds, or, that he can't develop his technique to be a little bit more effective in the run game. But at the same time, like, it is a very talented player that can play a position in a way that what's 6'3", 240 some odd pounds receivers do you know out there that can move the way he can?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I'll save my pro Brock Bowers propaganda for our war room episodes when we get there. But I love Brock. I was just kind of surprised none of you were really. I know like the positional value and all that
The
stuff.
testing
Like,
is gonna
like
make it
all
a
the
lot
arguments
easier.
Malik made are awesome. Like I completely agree with all those, and it's just a matter of opinion at the end of the day because I love Newton and all that stuff too. But I like Brock Bowers, so I'm interested to get into it a little more as we continue down the road.
Oh gosh.
I know it ain't happening. I know it ain't. I know.
Making sure we
Just had to make
but
sure
I
I had
can
to look
make
you
sure
in the
you-
eye and
I
let you
can-
know.
I can hope.
listen. The fact of the matter is, there's no issue with Brock Bowers at
There's
all.
not.
I'm just more so
Other
not
players that you might feel.
there's other players. There's
Right.
going to be other positions of needs. And I see people asking the question in the comment section. I feel like we're all over the place today. Right?
We
I
are.
kind of love it. I kind of love it.
Fun.
I love the fact that there's discourse going on right now, man.
fun.
But people asking about Jeremy Chin. I'm sorry I
Yeah.
put that tweet out last night. It had nothing to do with the Bengals. I was just simply watching his tape, and I
It's
was
fun.
like, the dude was an absolute beast.
It didn't play him this year. He literally
And-
didn't see the field.
Yeah. And William Herman, I hope Bowers goes 5. I hope. There ain't no debate. There's no debate. There's going to be other positions for the Bengals to address. Right? That's what it is. But, and Badio Higo says, today is a great show. Man, I hope every Wednesday is a goddamn great show, but I came with the extra juice today. Because I want to just buck a couple of theories. But while we're here, we're going to get back to the free agency talk. Rissy, let's go on over to the safety position, right? The question is, should the Bengals add, who should the Bengals add at free safety? Now, you guys know Evan and I.
Oh goodness.
Ronald Best said it a couple of minutes ago. We do love Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Somebody,
That's how the Roll Tide's gonna
let
be.
me address Adrian. Adrian says, Cardosa says, so what about your tweet earlier about unwilling to trade your guy? Trade your guy. Okay. I think I know what you're referring to. I don't there's no my guy, but the Bengals have not been willing to engage in talks with trades about T. Higgins. That is completely false. They have not at all. They haven't even entertained the idea. So when people are throwing it out there, that is speculation. That is hearsay. Everybody in the league wants them to, but there's a difference between them wanting them to and them actually doing it. They have not engaged in any talks with T. Higgins. I've had those conversations with people from other teams, and people are saying, you guys know he's just going to walk for nothing next year. So that's what I was referring to. There ain't no conversations happening with that. And that's fools, that's just a bunch of hearsay for people saying that. But anyway, we were on the safety talk, right? Let's talk about it.
You're Alabama.
Everybody
Where you're
knows
going.
that I am a Alabama Crimson Tide fan along with Evan. And our guy is somehow hitting free agency because the Giants don't know how to keep a good thing, I guess, whether that be with Saquon and all that kind of stuff. But Xavier McKinney is a guy that is intriguing. You talk about a playmaker, you talk about a young player, he's going to cost a lot. Probably going to cost a lot. That is a guy that I believe can change a franchise. It's weird. It's almost like the Giants saw themselves in a similar situation that we saw ourselves in with Jesse Bates.
Yeah.
The difference is they were like, all right, he had some injury. Like, let's see, he can prove it that he can really be that guy. And then he did. And they were like, all right, bye. See ya. Thanks. Yeah. Like he was fucking good this last year, dude. Like he was one of the lone bright spots there. He had 26 defensive stops. I mean, he was a really good safety and a guy that you can deploy in a lot of different ways on your defense. Now, I think Malik kind of nailed it that you're going to be paying $13 to $15 million a year for him.
That's the thing too. Malik talked about it a little bit earlier. Just with there's so many safeties out there now, all of a sudden, and obviously that's going to pay some dividends in these negotiations and everything too. I mean, Spotrac has him as a little under $11 million per year right now, which he could go here or there. But again, deep safety market. But he's also the youngest. He's arguably coming off the best year out of everybody there too.
Right.
He's fun. I mean, like it just comes down to how much you're gonna want, the safety position. Malik talked about earlier. If we're gonna move Dax Hill down a little bit, how much more does that position become? How much more money are you willing to spend on a guy like Xavier McKinney or some of these older guys? It's a fun discussion to have.
I think you made a good point too about the depth of the free agent safety class and then you see, I think it was Quandre Diggs got released from Quandre Diggs look like he's not like an all pro level guy anymore. That dude's a really good safety, just been really good for years. I think it says a lot that guys like Jordan Whitehead and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who just a year and a half ago was everybody wanted them to sign for $10-12 million a year, right? And he's like the 8th ranked safety in a lot of places, like that kind of area for a lot of free agent lists. So it's like you have a very wide array of different types of safeties, but also if we don't think they're giving up on Dax Hill, right? It's a first round pick. He's had 1 full year of playing. Like I think they're still. But that's what makes me think they don't sign these top end safeties, right? Of course, for the financial commitment, but also because they want room for Dax to grow if he does grow into that role. That's what makes me look at guys like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, like Deshaun Elliott, who have played in the box, have played up high, like who have that versatility to wherever they have to go. Mike Hilton's getting closer to 30. If he gets hurt, okay, boom, we can slide this guy into the slot. Okay, Dax Hill's not looking good. Okay, boom, we can slide this guy in next to Jordan Battle. There we go. Like, oh, we need extra help wherever in the defense. We have that. So I think, especially with Lou, versatile defensive backs is something that he's really loved, and versatility in general. So I think a lot of those guys that I think they play in that kind of middle tier of like the $5 to $7 million range in safety. But I do agree with you that I think they do try and make an effort to add somebody.
Oh, they definitely do. And I mean, you're just looking at this. There's 10.
He's got a guy. He's got a guy.
I do.
I know a guy.
I do. I mean,
Here's a
so
guy.
I just look at it. There's 10 guys that are under 27 or 28 years old. And there's going to be guys. So, yeah, I've got 2 guys. Jordan Fuller for the Rams. I just, went back and rewatched him, man. He's almost like I hate to use the term. He's like a safe, like he's a safety. Like he's not missing tackles. He's, not going to go out there and make these crazy plays, but he's athletic. He's played the free safety spot. He's, good in the run game. He's consistent. And that's what I really like about Jordan Fuller. Another guy, Alohi Gilman. I loved him coming out, of the draft. And when you just look at what he did with the Chargers, their defense was just a mess. Their safety room was a mess, and they used them all over. But the one thing he did, he made plays. And for me, I want a safety who can make plays. The dude had 4 forced fumbles this year, 2 recovered fumbles, I think 1 interception. I want a dude that can make plays. So those are 2 guys. They're going to cost $6 million a year. Sam?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You think more,
less.
Fuller?
Okay.
I would
Again,
say
we
less.
talk about Brad Spielberger.
Yeah.
Fantastic at what he does, where he analyzes cap for over the cap, who's been doing it for years. He's been doing that. Graduated with a law degree from Vanderbilt and now consults with many of these teams on these contracts and is very scary accurate down to almost the dollar amount sometimes, even with the guarantees. Like he's very locked in, and I will continue to sing his praises because he is the most accurate there is. Alohi Gilman, 2 years, $3.5 million average per year. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about Jordan Fuller is projected 2 years, $4.5 a year. But that's the thing, right? Is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, $5 million a year projection. Jordan Whitehead, $6 million a year projection. Julian Blackman, 5.5. These are all 25 and 26-year-old safeties, like you said, where these aren't like 30-year-old guys or 29-year-old guys trying to get one last hurrah. These are ascending safeties, the kind of guys that the Bengals like to try and target in free agency coming off of that first contract. So I think they're going to have a bevy of options there to choose from. And I don't think they're going to be forced to go and really spend up on any position in particular.
Or you said just throw $10 million at Xavier McKinney a year? Is that what you just said?
10 ain't getting it done, brother.
No?
Brad has him projected at $13.5 million a year, $30 million guaranteed. That's the thing is, if you're not going to pay Jesse Bates $15 a year, are you going to pay Xavier McKinney $13.5? And I think maybe
Xavier McKinney's still only 24 though, too.
Right.
I think that's a difference here.
But
to bring it up
again,
as well.
The homegrown guy, you want to bring that back because you want to
continuity.
You want the continuity. You want to establish the culture of, hey, we reward our players who play well.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have a handful of guys like that who deserve it. And I think Bates is probably one of those guys, but maybe they hurt a little bit from the absence of Bates to where they say, hey, it's $2 million cheaper 2 years down the road, like including inflation, like the Bates money this year might have been 18 million, 17 million. So if you're saying you get him 13.5, he's young, he's ascending, and they just want to check the box and say, we're done with worrying about safety.
Yeah.
That's sure, but I just don't see it myself.
Yeah. Another thing too, I have some safeties too that I like. I mean, we're all just listed a bunch of safeties here. Like
Right.
that's the point about the
Yeah.
safety market. Like
Yeah.
there's so many viable
So many.
options.
It's like
Like,
linebackers.
it's
2 years
unreal.
ago.
Like, it's
when they
really
had Tremaine
unreal.
Edmonds and who was the guy the Raiders signed from the Rams that everybody wanted?
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
Everybody was signing linebackers, and that's why they were able to get guys like Logan Wilson and Jermaine
Mhm.
Pratt for $6 or $8 million instead of 10, which a lot of
Yeah.
people were projecting.
Yeah, that's why some of those. I mean, these guys like we're all talking. These guys are already cheap. They're going to be cheap.
Right.
You know, like that's the point of having guys like Savage, Blackman, Kinney, and now Diggs and all these
Right.
older, not older, but all these guys that have already
Blackman is the
proven
guy
they're
that caught my eye.
Julian,
good. Yes,
huh?
he's good, man.
Mhm.
It wasn't he
He's
the
good.
same guy that confused Joe Burrow and picked him off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's good. He's good. I mean, there's
He's a
again,
guy.
there's so many safeties we can sit here and talk about. I can
Yeah.
talk about Ashton Davis. I can talk about Mike
Mhm.
Edwards. Like Mike Edwards.
Mike
also-
Edwards. Mike Edwards.
Mike Edwards also
Super Bowl champ Mike Edwards. You
two-time
gotta say-
Super Bowl
you gotta
champ.
say
Two-time Super Bowl
Two-time.
champ. He's played with Tom
Two-time.
Brady.
Okay.
He's played with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Got another one. And,
Greatness.
and he's from Cincinnati, Ohio. If you didn't know that.
Right.
Really?
Okay.
Just
Okay.
saying. Just saying.
Come
All
home.
right.
brother,
Shout out
come
Mike.
home.
Yeah,
Saying.
real quick, people are talking about Geno Stone. I think Geno Stone, I'm curious to see what's projected. The dude balled out this year, and I think
1
he'll-
year of really good production.
I
is-
think he's gonna
Projected
make
about 7.
real. I mean, if you could get him for 7, I think people are gonna.
Bro,
But it's the market too. It's
the
suppressed
Lou
because of the
Anarumo
options.
staple, guys, just to give you guys just the inside look. Stop looking at these high-end guys that
Yeah.
everybody's talking about. Look at the guys that people say have a first-round pedigree, or they have a pedigree of like they have potential, right? And people have kind of cast them off. Those are the guys the Bengals have typically gone after.
Yeah.
The ones that you can probably get here for 3 years. Like it's like 3 years, not too long, but enough to reestablish their value as they progress through this thing.
Yeah.
So those are the guys that I'm looking at. Somebody, I personally was just looking at Jeremy Chin. I don't know if Jeremy Chin is a fit because I feel like he's more of the
More of a hybrid linebacker.
but like he's definitely not the Bengals. You would need a free safety. You would need
Yep.
somebody that can really excel in that spot. And I just don't think that that's that.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at some of these, to their point, there is a lot of guys that are going to be there for the
So
picking
many.
that you just got to look at. You got to say, what's going on? Like, I
Yeah.
want one of them, right? So for me, it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Let's keep it going with some more free agents, man, that we can see the Bengals potentially pick up, right? So Kelsey Conway had a report where she said the Bengals are looking to add 2 defensive tackles. Now,
Mhm.
looking to add and actually adding are 2 totally different
Very
things,
different
right?
story.
Very different things. Listen, I think when we boil it down, I still believe Cincinnati is going to be a destination that teams will consider, obviously. But let's talk about that for a second. We've expressed it a little bit on this show, potential fits that we see for this team. I saw a question earlier. Someone was asking, well, what happens with the receiver position? I really believe in my heart the slot receiver is going to be decided between Yoshi Voss and Charlie Jones. I think that Charlie Jones is a guy that the team is extremely high on. He got robbed of a majority of the season due to that injury and stuff like that. But I still think that, there is life that you need to things you need to sort of fix in the, things you're going to need to get adjusted to for life in the NFL. And I think that people shouldn't be out on these guys so early.
If only he had gotten more snaps to try and get more seasoning. If
We did
only
have a
they-
bet, though. You and me had a bet in the beginning of the season.
Did we?
Yeah.
What did we bet?
I promise.
Yeah.
I said
That's what I
Yoshi Voss would have more touchdowns
Yeah.
than Charlie Jones.
I don't know if did I really take that
You
bet
did.
because I
You
was the
did.
one who was all on the Yoshi Voss is going to be
You
a red
did.
zone weapon action.
You did. You said you
Man,
thought-
we might
you
need
said-
to produce
said-
Marissa. We might need to
Go
put a clip on
back.
that
Yeah.
one.
Roll
Yeah.
the tape.
Roll the tape on that one.
You said Charlie would get more snap. Obviously, he got robbed of a lot of it due to his injury and stuff like that.
Snaps now, yeah, that I would understand. Like snaps, 100%, I would say that. But like then Charlie Jones gets hurt, and then T. Higgins gets hurt, and suddenly Yoshi Voss is playing a lot. Like
Sounds like a dude who just lost to
That's-
Batman. All these excuses.
I haven't even figured it out whether or not I said it yet, and I'm already hedging a little bit. He's over there brushing. You feeling like a pimp? Go
Yeah.
brush your shoulders off, ladies
So,
and pimps.
guys,
Go and brush your shoulders
We're
off.
not gonna just do what we usually do, right? We usually say, "Oh, what is your thoughts on the Bengals signing this guy and that guy?" Let's do something a little bit different. Give me your prediction. Give me your free agent prediction. Logan, I'm gonna start with you. Who do you think the Bengals sign? Let's go. Give me 3 free agents. Throw them out there and tell me why.
Any position.
Any position. I don't give a damn. Let's go.
I really think I've talked about it a few times. Lloyd Cushenberry is a guy I like a lot. He's got the repertoire of Joe Burrow. He was a center in college. You know, he can come in and play guard this year or even center this year, move Ted over, and then you let that kind of work itself out as the year goes on, as next year goes on.
And for the people, drop down in the comment section the 3 free agents you think the Bengals are going to sign. And while we're at it, because we keep forgetting we're having too much fun, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live. And also subscribe to the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. Remember, every single State of the Jungle is simulcasted on the Sit Down and First Star Media Group's YouTube channel. But drop down your 3 free agents you guys think the Bengals sign. Logan, continue. My apologies.
No, you're good. Another guy that I like to throw out there, we're going to go back to the cornerback room. Another LSU guy, believe it or not, Christian Fulton. Just one of those guys, he was kind of maybe a little overhyped coming out, just, beneficent of playing with these massive LSU teams that were just unbelievable. Maybe the hype was a little much, but he's still been solid in the NFL. Another one of those guys, again, that we talked about that Lou likes a bet on, first round pedigree, maybe hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype, but can play in the NFL. He has experience starting, he has experience covering good receivers. I mean, shit, he has experience covering Jamar Chase. There's a guys that's going to obviously make him hopefully a little cheaper, coming back to play with some of his guys again. Obviously, it just so happens to be an LSU guy. Like, I would still believe it. I would still want it just as much if he wasn't, but it just so happens to work out that way. And again, continuing that trend on defense, first round pedigree guys that, were really hyped up coming out of college that haven't necessarily lived up to it. I think it might maybe be more towards the draft, but I wouldn't be surprised if we signed another linebacker too. We've been really fortunate with Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt's injury history. They've been great. Their play slipped a little bit last year, so maybe they want to add a little bit of heat. I don't think Akeem Davis-Gaither is going to come back. And you have Bailey's a free agent, Batchy's a free agent, so you got to do something. I look at a guy like Kenneth Murray. He's been bad. He's been bad. He's been real bad. He's been real bad. But that's why I just see that vibe. I agree. He's been real bad, but he fits the mold of kind of the things the Bengals look for. He was a good athlete. He tested well. And then he has that pedigree. He's cast it off. But now he doesn't have to start. He doesn't have to play all these snaps. Now you can let him develop. You can let him do these things instead of being forced onto the field right away. You can use him to his strengths. You can use him to advantage. And he just kind of fits that vibe of a player the Bengals like to bring in and bet on. Again, that one for me, not necessarily something I would do. Again, I think they could maybe go towards drafting a guy there. That's the vibe of what the Bengals tend to do. I think Kenneth Murray fits a lot of the historical trends of everything.
Chuck, you're funny. Sorry. He puts his 3 free agents. He says, Drew Sample, Joe Bachie, and Noah Fant. That was a nice little.
I like that. Yeah, that's funny.
Oh my God, man. Daniel, let's go to you.
No, Drew Sample. I like that.
They're going to break it back. We know it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Drew Sample.
Tanner Hudson.
What did Ocho say? Everything is alive for the death taxes and 85 hours of death taxes, and Bengals will sign Drew Sample.
Drew Sample will be a Bengal.
He will. Man. If I have to give 3 free agents, first of all, I'm gonna steal one of your guys.
We're doing 3.
Bobby Hart.
Bobby Hart. That's crazy. I'm gonna steal Christian Fulton. I think Christian Fulton was a guy I definitely loved out of college, and just looking what he did with the Tennessee Titans, I just remember his rookie year and then the year after that, they had a lot of hyped up guys. They drafted another cornerback. Farley. They had so many guys there with, Brian Callahan and the new regime going to Tennessee. I don't see them re-signing Christian Fulton. And that's a position where you're going to have 2 main starters, right? You're going to have Cam Taylor-Britt. You're going to have DJ Turner. And you're going to need to add someone else. So I think Christian Fulton's a guy. He's still young enough. He's 25 years old. I really like Fulton. If I were to give another guy, I'm going to go out on a limb. I think they add someone like a Javon Kinlaw, first round pedigree, like you said, a young, talented guy.
Who they liked.
Yeah, they did. And looking at the 49ers, that's going to be the biggest thing is, do they re-sign him, right, on a prove-it deal?
Yep.
I think they're going to obviously potentially give him an offer, but I wouldn't see why the Bengals don't give him, a potential 2-year, 3-year deal. I think Javon Kinlaw is the potential, 26 years old. He's still young, and he's a guy where we talk about depth. That's what you can add. And he's potential to where he could be a starting defense tackle. He could be very good. His athletic traits are there. So Javon Kinlaw. And if I'm thinking one more, I'll just stick with Jordan Fuller. I think looking at the safety position, Jordan Fuller was the guy. He's just consistent, man. You can throw him in at free safety, and you don't have to force, Dax Hill and Jordan Battle to feel pressure if you go sign a Xavier McKinney, if you go sign a Geno Stone. Yeah. He's a guy, Jordan Fuller, would fit right into the rotation, and he's consistent. And comparing him versus Nick Scott, he was far more consistent than Nick Scott was, even heading into the offseason. So I think those 3 guys are lower tier guys where you'd pay a combined 10 million for them.
Yeah.
So.
I really like the Kinlaw, and like I was gonna go there as well, but something that I kind of noticed scrolling through the free agents and just looking at everything, especially in the defensive tackle room, and just historically how the Bengals haven't really gone after guys trending towards 30 and about to be 30.
Yep.
If like
Yep.
if that's gonna continue to be true, I don't know what defensive tackle they're gonna try to sign, because every single good one is 29, 30, or 31, or you have your Fletcher Coxes of the world and your Calais Campbells.
Perfect segue.
Like-
I'm about to
like,
say that's exactly what
it's crazy. It's crazy.
I love it. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna roll right into that with my few here, because I got 2 of those guys
Good.
that Logan was just talking about, and that's a
Good.
really good point that I want to go over right now, is because interior defensive line, we usually see that cliff or that fall off in your production starting around age 30,
Mhm.
right? So you've got that factoring in. You've got the fact that Bengals are not likely to give out a 2 or 3 year deal to a 30-year-old player to begin with. So you've got those 2 factors coming in right now. So that 30 mark, again, is kind of what you're looking at. Chris Jones, going to be 30. Madubuike tagged. Christian Wilkins, solid. He's 28. Leonard Williams, going to be 30. DJ Reader, going to be 30. Grover Stewart is 30. Sheldon Rankins, going to be 30. So we're already down to Tier Tart, who is my first guy.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I think this represents kind of an optimal spot for value and just trying to get more bodies, more competent, capable bodies in the trenches for the Bengals, because they did not have that behind DJ Reader and the flashes of BJ Hill last year, especially if you're going to be trying to replace Reader as well as add ideally 2 spots. You need to be a little bit cheap on these spots. So these are younger guys who are the 27, 28, but have the upside that they can be either a rotational or starter for you if things pan out in the best way. So Tier Tart is 27, coming off a weird year with the Titans, where they've kind of clearly shown that they were in the midst of a regime change, and he had come off a career year and was getting less playing time and ended up getting cut in the middle of the season altogether. And the Bengals were one of the teams that put in a claim for him. So that's an easy route to say they were already interested in him. Now he's available as a free agent. Projections have him at about $7 million a year right now. But just to put into perspective, his last full season with the Titans, not this last year where he got cut, but that previous year in 2022, he ranked tied for 19th out of 66 defensive tackles in terms of PFF grade. Missed tackles, a little bit of a problem, but in small samples, you can get that. He was 15th in pass rush grade at the same time. So a guy who was productive, was ascending, looked like he was trending up into his 3rd year, and then suddenly weird regime change, and suddenly he gets cut. So that's something I'd be willing to take a chance on. Another guy, you want a guy who can give you juice, right? Be a rotational pass rusher who's not going to cost much. Maurice Hurst, the guy who came in, who only fell in the draft because of concerns with his heart problem. Now, once that was addressed and known that it wasn't going to be an issue, and they found steps and preventative care for that, then he was pretty successful. He had pass rush win rate over 10% from the interior, but then he had a calf injury that took him out 1 year. Then the next year he was coming back and he tore his biceps. Again, these are not like, oh, he's got a persistent hamstring. Oh, he keeps pulling his groin. These are
freak injuries.
Sometimes when you're like Terrell Suggs played like every year for 8 years and then tore his biceps. Like, it just happens sometimes, especially when you're getting older. So coming off those injuries, saying, hey, you're still young. You didn't damage your knee, right? We don't expect catastrophic damage. We would expect a full recovery. That's a guy you can get for $3-4 million a year to kind of fill in and rotate. Now you've added 2 bodies for what you would have paid Sheldon Rankins or Leonard Williams to be 30 years old, right? But then you pay for the 2-3 years. Another guy, so we talked about those 2 guys. I just want to say that I have always beat the cornerback drum. I always say you can't have enough corners, and when you think you have enough corners, you still need one more. I'm looking at kind of guys just like Steven Nelson, man. Like, yeah, that's your age 30, but you're looking for this guy to be a stopgap option, right? While you kind of figure out what your rotation and what the future of your corner room is going to be right now. And maybe they draft one in the 3rd or the 4th round that they kind of try and bring along a little bit. But adding a guy like a Steven Nelson on the boundary, because right now if DJ Turner or Cam goes down, like,
or even just struggle. Like they're still young.
Who do you have? Who do you have behind them that you feel good about going out there and starting and taking care and locking down some of these receivers? Like Steven Nelson's just been good for years, like just really solid. Kenny Moore from the Colts had a good year. He might be looking to start though. So like,
and he's more of a slot guy.
Right. But then you look at guys like Adoree Jackson who got like, that's an injury history. I like Adoree Jackson. That's more of an injury history I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
But Steven Nelson is just one of those really solid guys that you can get who you just know what he's going to be. He's going to be that veteran presence who shows up every day and can just be capable out there, be what Nick Scott was supposed to be for the safety position and just offer you some consistency in case of injury there. So those are kind of the three guys that I really like for them for bargain bin targets.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. You can talk about the running back position. For me, I'm not for the Bengals. Look to the draft because all these guys, you can look at them. Sure, there's some names, right? You can talk about Rico Dowdle, AJ Dillon. But at the end of the day,
I was not expecting you to start with Rico
Dowdle.
No,
I respect
Listen,
it. I respect it totally.
I'm a fan of Rico. I'm a fan of Rico, but
that's just not what I was expecting you to kick it off with.
If we're being honest, right? What are you signing these guys for, right? A Damian Harris. People are talking about, Ezekiel Elliott. No. Like you have Joe Mixon, you have Chase Brown, and for people that don't believe Joe Mixon will be there, you're not going to go sign one of these guys to replace Joe Mixon. You're in the same boat. So look to the draft for the running backs because I'm sorry, Zach Moss is not doing anything for me. Respectfully, Zach Moss is fine, but what are you adding Zach Moss for? What are you adding J.K. Dobbins, Devin Singletary? What are you adding these guys for?
All of that comes down to if they cut Joe Mixon, these guys become obviously way more likely.
Yes,
but I think any of us really foresee.
But then,
that
so
happening.
for me, it's like you'd cut Joe Mixon, who's making what, $7 million a year, to sign these guys for $4 million. Is that extra $3 million, in my opinion, worth it? No, that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
so,
I get that, but at the same time, if you can get a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire at $2 million, $3 million because he fell out of favor really quick and had flashes last year, but that's the kind of guy you might be able to get a deal on. But like, I think you made a good point where
I'd rather draft someone
as
Clyde.
people, as
think
someone who like was talking about the Joe
point.
Mixon cut conversation last year. Again, he was making more money. There were a lot more options in the draft and free agency. Like there's still some free agent names, but like Daniel said, I think they all have questions that leave you wanting. And I think that's fair. So, but I think really if you end up losing Joe Mixon, that the complementary skill set you need for Chase Brown is just kind of that bruiser. But I would just like I really would love the running back for the Bengals that has the ability to sniff out the short yards, either in goal line situations and 3rd and 1. If you took out like Joe Burrow's quarterback sneaks on the 3rd and 1, the 3rd and short, the 4th and short, the Bengals like short running would be putrid. Their like run success, like how many times do we see them line up like on the 1 yard line with Joe Mixon as a battering ram and then just 3 times in a row and you get nothing, right? It just feels like it happens too often. And I'm not saying that Joe Mixon is necessarily bad at that, but there are some guys that we say they just have a nose for the end zone, right? They find that little sliver of space, that gap, they feel it, they just know here's where I can attack.
Like free agent running back Gus Edwards, for example.
Gus. Okay, yeah, Gus bus, man. I would ride the Gus bus. I would be about it. But like, yeah, there are those guys who just have that talent, right?
Yeah.
And so I would love that for them to, if they do end up moving on from Mixon, going a different route and wanting to bring in a veteran on top of drafting a guy, because you also have that Travion Williams role that you kind of want to feel better about. And that's where a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire might slide in. And then maybe you draft one of these guys who's more of that power back role. So that's just kind of my thoughts on where it's at right now. Malik, you're smiling. What you got over there, buddy?
So let me just preface this.
Drew Sample?
I am not reporting any news because whatever I say somehow finds its way to the good old X waves.
I love this
people say
qualifier.
Malik said the Bengals are gonna sign this person.
Hang on, let me open Twitter. What were you saying?
Let me just say this: the Bengals don't do the tampering thing. They don't.
No one does.
Nobody does the tampering thing. It's
Against the
illegal.
rules.
It's illegal, guys.
Illegal.
It's illegal. But this is completely me trying to be speculative and go off of realistic options. This is coming with no knowledge. I promise you. I'm being serious here because I don't want to log on to Twitter or X and say Malik said the Bengals are going to sign such and such. Please, guys, please don't do this. Please. All right.
Logan.
If I were the Bengals, I'm not the Bengals, but if I were the Bengals and I'm looking for options that make sense, that are realistic, that the financial side works out. Before I actually do this, make sure you guys give this video a like. We have over 199 people in here. We are like 200 some people in here. We only have 46 likes. Come on, guys. Help us out.
202. Thank y'all.
We
Thank y'all for
appreciate
coming.
you. Appreciate
y'all
you guys for
hanging
coming
out.
and looking at my ugly face. But here we go. All right. One of the moves I would make is I would personally
Excited.
realistically go after Darnell Savage if I'm the Bengals.
I like that.
Free safety, a guy that was praised for his leadership. He seemed to be looking like he would take the next step, and for some reason didn't work out in Green Bay. He's a guy that was drafted with the 21st overall pick or something like that. I believe in the draft. To me, I think that makes sense. I think Darnell Savage is a guy, if you're looking for a younger guy that you can sort of build with. If you want to, it really just depends what avenue the Bengals are trying to go with the safety position. Are you trying to have a stopgap for a year? Or are you trying to have a young guy that you could build with? If you're trying to have a young guy you could build with, I think Darnell Savage makes sense. I think, what's his face? Julian Blackmon is a guy that makes a lot of sense. I think, but if you're trying to go older, if you're trying to say, hey, we need a veteran presence back there to stable the room, I'm looking at one of the two safeties the Bills just cut. I'm looking at Jordan Poyer. I'm looking at Micah Hyde. Now, do those guys move the needle enough? I know they've been dealing with injuries and stuff like that, but do they move the needle enough? Because if I'm looking at a guy, for instance, that I'm trying to build with, I think you have a lot of guys to pick from, whether it be the Xavier McKinney, who's probably going to cost a crap ton, whether it be the Darnell Savage, whether it be Cameron Curl, whether it be any of these guys. I think those guys make sense from the safety spot. What's up, Bev?
Oh, no, I was just like, I was kind of taking a deep breath because I was like, Cam Girl is going to cost a pretty penny. If you don't want me,
That's where we were going.
Right, yeah. He's going to cost about McKinney for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
I
like your idea though of like these kind of like 26-year-old guys who can either build or rotate, because when you sign a guy for big money, you have pressure to play him, right? And prove you're right. When you sign a guy for super cheap, he might not think he's going to get all that much run or anything like that. Whereas we saw them rotate guys in a lot last year, but also you have that safety of that middle ground, like you said, with Savage, where he's good as a rotational guy. He'd probably be willing to accept a bit of a rotational spot, but also if Dax doesn't work out and continues to not play well, not be able to communicate well on defense, then that's something you'd feel comfortable with them 100%. Not only taking that role, but taking that role for the future. So I really like that idea. For sure.
I think Mekhi Becton is a guy that makes sense at the right tackle spot. I don't love it, but I look at the fact that Frank Pollock is the guy that drafted him. He was in the room when he was drafted. He's a guy that, really, praised him. And this is a lot of people thought Mekhi Becton was going to be an absolute beast in the league.
Can I ask you and the collective you and the collective you about Mekhi Becton? Because this is an interesting thing, I think, about the Mekhi Becton conversation.
Please say what I think you're going to say. Let's
say
continue.
what you need to say. You're drafting a tackle, right, in the first 2 rounds if you sign Mekhi Becton.
Yes.
How confident are you that Mekhi Becton makes it past 8 games, 10 games? Right. But isn't the idea of signing a Mekhi Becton so that the rookie does not have to play immediately or deal with that, right? So if I'm having that mindset when we talk about signing Mekhi Becton, I would look at more of a guy who doesn't have the massive injury concerns, if that's your plan, right? Because the idea is
somebody said Carmen over Becton. Stop it. Stop it.
The idea that you just don't want the rookie to play, so you sign Becton, who is not likely to play more than half of the season unless something really goes right. I would rather look in the direction of a Trent Brown or Michael Onwenu or Jermaine.
Let me be very clear.
Yeah,
I don't want
I was just curious about your guys' thoughts. I just think that
we have to understand, not us. I'm just saying the masses have to understand. If you're screaming for the Bengals to go after a guy that is good, that is a pending free agent,
right?
And that they played really, really well. They were one of the bright spots for their team, and they're hitting free agency. Let's talk about it. Free agency for the first time, where you're going to get teams throwing a ridiculous amount of money at you. especially a team like the Bears who are going to have money to spend that are going to try to look to add.
Washington.
Why? Like, what makes you think that they're not going to throw crazy money? And are you willing to get into a bidding war? I'm sorry, Michael Winu.
You have to overpay.
Michael Winu made himself a lot of money, guys. He made himself a lot of money. He's
gonna make
not
a
going to
lot
come
of
cheap.
money.
And I know the Bengals be willing to pay a tackle, but do they believe he's a tackle? Do they believe he's a tackle, or do they view him as a guard? Because if they view him as a guard, like, we know he can play tackle, but do they view him long-term as our starting right tackle? And if they view him more as a guard, they're not paying him what he can command from a team that's willing to throw a lot of money. And
Somebody's going to pay him to be a tackle.
Pete Crowley, you're saying exactly what I always say: the best ability is availability. But I'm going off of what what they've done essentially. Lyle Collins wasn't too available for the Cowboys, and they still were able to get a deal done with him. And I think it's something to be said when you get two guys that Frank Pollock has either drafted, right, or has helped coach and develop, both hitting free agency. Like, to me, I feel like they're, especially knowing the Bengals like Mekhi Becton coming out, would there be enough interest to get it done? Especially even if it's not a long-term deal, maybe it's a 1-year deal, maybe it's a 2-year deal. Have established your value in the league, whatever the case may be. I don't know. I'm just going off of what they've done. So keeping it going.
I did see someone asked about Geno Stone, why we just weren't talking about him so much.
Ooh.
Guys, I think he falls in that bucket of, he's a guy who's been a rotational safety, who's flashed every time he's been on the field. I think he wants to be a starter.
Yes.
Like, I don't think he is interested in, we're going to play you and Dax Hill and Jordan Battle, and y'all will play 400 or 500 snaps, and we'll see how it shakes out. I think he's looking for his opportunity.
If I had to guess, he'll be a Seahawk with Mike McDonald. They just cut both their safeties.
That's a really good, yeah. With them, they basically just got rid of both of their whole safety room. Yeah, that's a really, really good thought.
And just adding, like, he's going to make. Yeah, that was very good. Like, you look at what Eric DeCosta just said. We talked to him at the combine. He said Geno Stone might be, one of the best late round guys he's ever drafted. With what he's saying and the production he put out, he's gonna want to be a starter. He will be a starter. So it's like, yeah.
And guys, this is just us discussing it. Anybody's saying that this is going to happen, so there's no need to be, let's not get into a debate about it. We're just simply just breaking down realistic. Let's just relax. Keeping it going. Noah Fant.
Really?
All roads lead to Noah Fant.
Noah Fant. I think Noah Fant ends up in Cincinnati. I believe that.
Hope so.
If I was Cincinnati, I'd be very interested in him. I don't think the Bengals leave free agency without a tight end. I don't.
What would you do if it's not Fant? And I hate that. I'm sorry.
Hey, let's say Noah Fant has a 2-year $1 billion deal somewhere.
I hope he does.
Where are you going next?
Listen, I just hope wherever he goes is good quarterback play. But Gesicki, we're back on that Gesicki train.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not going after retreads. I'm just not. Let's touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
As to why. Number one, we know the Bengals don't really like to sign players who hit that 30 mark. I just think that when you look at Hayden Hurst, who I thought was a fine tight end for the Bengals.
Yeah, totally.
I just think that, when you're staring at it, man, it's just like, all right, he didn't do amazing with the Bengals. He's a reason why he's on his what team at this point? No team has been willing to commit to him long term, and the one team that did commit to him long term cut him. I knew that there were injury concerns with that, so I feel like sometimes Bengals fans rob themselves of what could potentially be because we get too attached to players sometimes. And I think Hayden Hurst is fine. I like the whole crop top thing and all that. That was cool. That was awesome. Nice flow of the hair and all that. But I can only report what I was told from someone close to him. And that was the Bengals showed little to no interest in trying to get a real deal done and trying to get him back in Cincinnati.
That stuff going on with him and the concussion.
That's
scary,
man.
man.
Make sure he's going to play football.
Scary.
And I understand he's been cleared and he's quote unquote, he's been training, but you can't train to get hit. You can't train for hit. We don't know how you respond. So no, I'm not relying on Hayden Hurst to come back to Cincinnati at 30-something years old at this point and be the tight end that the Bengals have been looking for. It was cool. He played his heart out that year we gave him here in Cincinnati.
But then again, next year, are we not having the exact same conversation again that we've had for the last, 2 seasons
Give
now?
me a tight end who's 26 years old, has a first-round pedigree, has barely been used. And when he was used, he showed significant promise. And he's dynamic with the ball in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
So I
You talking about Will Dissly?
No, I'm not talking about Will Dissly.
No, I did that. What was the like the lady? What was she sampling? Like avocado or in the meme where she's like,
Big Mac said, just give me a 78 overall tight end. I'm tired of the 65 overalls.
78 normal dev.
Man.
We're good.
But, normal.
We're good. About 26-year-old.
Oh man, he's that guy that you give that big contract to, and you're like,
he's gonna earn his star development here. That's what we're looking for.
So yeah, I'd rather go into the draft being able to not pigeonhole myself and go in and be like, hey, we have the chance to get ourselves an absolute dog at the position. Like, could you imagine Byron Murphy being there, but because you're like, oh no, Brock Bowers is there. I don't want Byron Murphy. What? Come on. What? No, I don't want Jerzon Newton. Come on now, guys. Stop. So I understand it's a fun conversation, but this is why, football is football. Malik is setting himself up to have a tight end.
I'm worried, man. I'm worried. I don't want this to be 2 years in a row, to be honest with you. I hope not, man.
We'll see. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'll know before everyone else. And if I text, if I tweet out a sad emoji, then you'll know what's what. But I think that Kinlaw makes a lot of sense too, right? If the Bengals are able to get, but again, I think there are going to be teams that are going to be clamoring for Kinlaw. I think this is a guy that made himself a lot of money. No, I wouldn't care if Brock Bowers is a Bengal, guys. I just think that thinking the Bengals would draft the tight end at 18 overall when they didn't draft the tight end at all last year. It's crazy. If you really think the Bengals are going to draft Brock Bowers at 18, if he's there, then okay. I think you're setting yourself up for failure personally. I don't.
I do it every year, Malik.
I don't believe they're drafting a 6'3" tight end who played at like 230 or something like that. I just don't think they do it.
It might have been 235, maybe.
I'm sorry, 235. But again, I've been shocked before. I was shocked when they brought back Jermaine Pratt. So who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I've never acted as if I was always right about everything. So I don't see that. They didn't draft the position at all last year. And they had so many chances to draft it. And they said, nope, we're going to run with Irv Smith. That's what they said to you. So
nice.
Yeah.
Without Tanner Hudson,
Yeah. So, he said Bowers hasn't been available at the past year. I think you're looking at. I think the fan. Here's what I think that fans are more high on Brock Bowers than this can't miss generational prospect than everybody else.
We got to retire this.
Yes.
The can't miss and the generation.
Oh, but that's the can't miss prospect. Like Kyle
generational prospect. You are like
Pitts,
once in a decade. Like that's like you're like a top 5, top 10 pick if you're top 10 if you're at a weird position where like normally you don't go like top 10.
Bro, but let's Mike
safety,
Judon. Like I very rarely do this. What is so like? What are you talking about? Like you said, you haven't seen Bowers come out in years, and we go back and forth on Twitter all the time, and I always appreciate you, my man. What is this like can't miss thing about Brock Bowers that what are you saying? Like what is so can't miss? You have never seen a prospect come out like Brock Bowers. Because a guy can break multiple tackles and Hulk smash. You want a tight end that can get end around handoffs? Is that what you want? I'm just trying to understand what haven't we seen?
To play the devil's advocate, there is a little bit of like Sam Laporta in the conversation where you say, what's the value in being able to break those tackles? That ability has translated for Sam Laporta. That does not mean that's going to happen for Brock Bowers, who also is a little bit smaller. And when you talk about if you had concerns in the run game with Sam Laporta too, like Bowers is a little bit smaller in physical stature than Laporta is, like only a little bit, but those inches matter sometimes. So, it does.
Size matters.
Sometimes, yeah.
All I'm gonna say, man, is
noted.
Man, all I'm gonna say, man, if I'm a team and Jerzon Newton or one of those guys staring at me, I'm not.
But that's the thing, right? Is it's not just Brock Bowers is bad. It's Brock Bowers is a good player. Flog is a good player. There might just be other good players that fall, right? We see this all the time where guys fall and they're like, man, this was a steal at pick 16. This is a steal at pick 21, 24, because so many of the premium positions, quarterback, right? Like, do we all think these quarterbacks are all, when they do their first round grades and everyone goes, I've got high first, top 5 pick on 2 quarterbacks and everyone else is like back into first, they get picked in the top 10 still. They get picked at 15 and 12. Daniel Jones fucking went way too early. It happens. So like,
JJ McCarthy,
players might end up there.
This is response. You know, I love interacting with people. Those tackles help the Chiefs pretty well at their tight end position, doesn't it? Well, so you're comparing him to one of the greatest tight ends of all time. Cool. Thanks, bro.
Kelsey doesn't really force a lot of his tackles
he
either.
says he was the best player in college football, not named Caleb Williams. Those are facts. So that's why he's being drafted top 5. So he's over Marvin Harrison. I rest my case. I mean, there's nothing else to talk about. I mean, thank you for coming, Michael Judon, to the show, or Judon, to the show. I appreciate you, man. Still love you. We're gonna disagree and debate all the way through draft time. It's late. I appreciate it. It was a great show.
Wow, yeah.
Make sure you guys give this. Make sure you guys give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. There's gonna be a lot of debates throughout the entire time. Just know, Cincinnati Bengals fans, love you guys. Without you guys, none of this is possible. Anytime that we get to sit up on this show and talk with you each and every single Wednesday, just know I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. And I'm not clouded by Noah Fant. I'm clouded by not pigeonholing yourself, Tyrone Thomas. But that's another discussion for a different day.
Alabama
vibes. But I'm just being honest. Like, why pigeonhole yourself going into free agency? You have free agency to address that before you get to the draft. Like,
I love the idea that
right,
the fanship, like, always, like, colors our perspective too well. Where I think we are all of the mindset of, like, being a fan of a team makes you more critical, more aware of the mistakes and where they fall short. Alabama, dude, like, the whole season was like, this is not a playoff team. This is not a playoff team. It wasn't until they went to go play Georgia that I looked at the numbers and I was like, okay, like, they found it. Like,
so
real quick. Obviously, people are saying Brock Bowers is the best player in college football. He was the 100th best receiver, had the 100th most receiving yards this year in college football.
How often does that not matter, though? Because college game and NFL game are not the same. The guys who play 200 snaps in college might be first-round picks, but the guys who are...
The point I'm making...
No, he was trying to...
I'm saying just to the general public, not to you specifically, Daniel. I'll fight you after the show.
That's fine.
So, Denny Kenny, I'm sorry that you felt like this show was a disappointment. He says, no scoops, Malik. Well, I mean, I pretty feel like I've given a couple of scoops on this show today, but
I was gonna say, literally the conversations just happened at the combine. Like, it doesn't all progress that quick.
If only there was a place where they could read what you think, like, or something, you know?
Yeah, I know, right? But if you check out TWSN.net, I kind of dropped my tidbits of what I heard. But luckily for you,
10 tidbits in there?
Next week, for 5 days straight, you guys get to see my beautiful face as I break down, free agency frenzy, all the rumors that we are hearing. And it's not just 5 days straight. It's actually 6 days because I'll be on Bengal Gyms with friends on Sunday. And then Monday through Friday, I'll be going live doing free agency frenzy, breaking it all down. So, why would I have scoops, right, if it's not the legal tampering period? Because the Bengals
nobody's talking.
The Bengals don't operate that way, guys. They don't follow that, right? They're a very good organization. They do not break the rules. So I'm sorry, Denny Kenny, that you saw this as a disappointment. Anyway, tune in on Monday. I'll be going live and breaking down the entire free agency frenzy process with you guys. I'm excited for it. The guys are excited about it. And make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live. Keep updated on the time that we're going to be going live. But just know, if it's anything like the free agency frenzy shows last year, I'll probably be live for about 2 hours. It was crazy last year, man. Whoa, he drawled. But
and goodbye.
Whoa, did not expect to see that in the comment section. But we appreciate you guys. Can't do this without you guys. Appreciate you guys spending your Wednesday with us. Until next